He's one half of the long-running ESPN talk show, Pardon the Interruption. He's also a sports journalist and a diehard Chicago sports fan. Here is Michael Wilbon. So one thing that I've always loved about you as a sports writer, something on TV, is that you have somehow navigated that fine line between, hey, I love the Cubs, I love the Bulls, I can root for my teams, but I can also cover sports with integrity. And I know there's a lot of sports writers who will never reveal who they root for, and then you've got a new breed who's like, look, I'm just writing about the teams I love. But you somehow have navigated the middle. So talk about how was that always the case for you?
No. Because like anybody, I learned journalism from the bottom up. Starting in high school, I realized that I was a junior in high school. I knew what I wanted to do. Yeah. Went to Northwestern, went to Medill, very, classic, traditional way of going about becoming a journalist, which is don't be part of the story. Fly on the wall, all the cliched things that are actually things you're supposed to put into play. So that was my life for the first 10 years. And then I became a columnist. And I didn't really reveal that much as a columnist, but you have to. Writing a column means you bring your baggage to work, all of it, and all that you are. You're giving opinions, you're telling people what to think, and I think it's only fair. I liked the columnists who were honest about what they felt and how they got there.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna do that, then I am all these things. I'm a son of the Midwest. I'm a black kid from the south side of Chicago. I grew up going to Catholic school, even though I'm not Catholic. I'm a child of the 70s, I guess, mostly. And so you're all these things, and including your rooting interests. That tells a lot about you. If you're gonna tell people what to think, you ought to be honest enough to tell them why you think that.
What about the argument, which I've heard, that if you're a sports writer, you shouldn't root for a team? Why does that argument exist?
That's their argument. It's somebody else's argument. It's not mine. I don't trust people who don't root for anything.
Yeah.
I don't trust them. Especially not in sports. That's why we all got into this. Right. We all got in because we weren't good enough to play at a high level, and we love what we do. And so would I read a movie critic that didn't like movies?
But they might not be like, I root for Clint Eastwood.
But you could have somebody you root for. You
That's
could.
True.
I mean,
That's true.
I would expect one to have favorite producers, favorite directors, favorite actors, actresses. I would expect that. So I don't have any problem saying, yeah, I like this team or this player, this manager. However, there's a however. And I just think that those things ought to be declared up front.
You mentioned that you like, I would assume almost every sports writer gets into it because you love sports. You love the games. You
Absolutely.
love the athleticism. The job, especially now, but I think it's, you can go back to Ali, you can go back further than that, it's always been about more than the games. So where do you, whether it's on Pardon the Interruption, whether it's a column, whether it's just how you're thinking about sports on a daily basis, navigate that, okay, I should do a segment now on how many points LeBron had, but then I got to talk about how LeBron is standing up to the president.
It's never compartmentalized like that for Tony or for me. I can speak for him. So for that show, it's not compartment. I don't even think in that vein. The thought should be, if not 360 degrees, certainly close to it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to look at LeBron James only as a guy who scored. I mean, I can do that for a half an hour, but if we're going to sit down and have a comprehensive discussion about any athlete, I got to know what makes this person tick. It's funny. I was just watching the U.S. Open this week. My son, who's 10 years old, was asking me about different people and different tennis players and who's Billie Jean King and who's Arthur Ashe. And because he's hearing
My kid's
Arthur Ashe
like,
Stadium.
Who's Garfield?
Well,
Yeah.
My son may wind up in the family business, but you're hearing.
Oh, mine too, though.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You're hearing these venues. Arthur Ashe Stadium. Who's Arthur Ashe?
Yeah, right.
Who's Billie Jean King?
Right.
And one of the things I told him was that I thought they were both of them. They were two of the most important heroic figures in the world of professional athletics in the 20th century. That my short list, of course, which I guess starts with Jackie Robinson, certainly before we get to a half dozen includes Billie Jean King and Arthur Ashe. And so the discussion was about that. Yes, I can tell them that Arthur Ashe won the first U.S. Open that was the open era in 1968. Yes, I have all those things at the disposal, but I can't separate Muhammad Ali's record and his fights with Joe Frazier from his stance against Vietnam. I don't see the need to separate them. As a matter of fact, I see the need not to.
So when you think about somebody like LeBron, how do you compare somebody like LeBron to, well, here's an obvious one, Jordan. Jordan, what he famously said, Republicans buy shoes too. Yeah. Or in today's terms...
Of course, Nike's commercial is now showing Republicans don't buy shoes. At least they're not buying them from Nike.
They burn them. They buy them and then burn them.
Not buying them from Nike.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing any gym shoes. Sneakers.
But you know what I mean?
I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. That's what you should do as much as possible. So I'll shut up. But there's some. Or let's say like Tom Brady. Tom Brady, although he ran into trouble during the campaign, for the most part, Tom Brady says the same thing over and over again. He says, "All I care about is my teammates. I just want to play at a high level." His teammates seem to like him. Fans in New England obviously love him. But he is not the cultural figure and never will be that somebody like LeBron is. And does that affect how you feel about an athlete?
It means I could be bored by that athlete, which I think is fair. I don't think everybody needs to comment on everything. I mean, there are people who are much more comfortable doing that publicly than others. Tom Brady clearly not comfortable doing that, and it's okay. I mean, it's fine. I don't need to make Tom Brady tell me what he thinks. I don't. There are enough people who have those views who now want to share them, not usually in the world of pro football. Basketball is a much more open society and open culture than pro football.
Can we talk about that?
Sure.
What is the NFL the most backwoods billion dollar organization of all time?
Yeah.
How?
Well, I mean, it's the industry of football. They compare themselves constantly to the military.
Right.
Right? I mean, this is the first place where they take a turn where you just go, really? I mean, I understood that in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, but we should be more sophisticated. It's about control. I was in a NASCAR event a few years ago, and Jimmy Johnson was in the middle of being the superstar of the sport at that time. I think he won like 5 in a row. And it's about 10 minutes before the race, and we're standing outside of his car, and he's holding his helmet, and he's talking to me. And I am clearly nervous now. It's 10 minutes before the race. This guy's going to go 200 miles an hour and risk his life. And we're talking. And I said, I got to let you go. You're close to race time. And he said, I'm fine. We're good. In a minute, I'll put the helmet on. I'll get in the car and you got to get out of here. And then he said, oh, I know what's happening here. You can't talk to Tom Brady this close to a game, can you? I'm like, you can't talk to Tom Brady on Tuesday because that's too close to a game. And so there are different cultures for different sports, and football's culture, which is not just embraced, it's insisted upon, is we don't like you, you're an outsider, no one can know what we do, only us, everything's a secret code, everything has to be, the favorite word of all coaches in football is what? Distraction.
Right.
Sex with your wife, that's a distraction.
So that's Monday? No sex?
You might get till Tuesday, but and maybe it needs to be that way.
And what's different? Is baseball different?
Well, football's more dangerous, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean, and so there's a level of attention that probably needs to be paid that is not the same for basketball. And it's just, I accept that they're different cultures. I don't need them to be similar. But you have to observe that they are different. And when you're dealing with the people who are in those cultures, you deal with them differently.
Talk about PTI. You met Tony years before PTI.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that. Do you remember meeting Tony for the first time?
Yeah, I was a summer intern. I was 20 years old working at the Washington Post. I was a senior at Northwestern, or about to be a senior. And I worked at the Post that summer. And this was, I hate to even say the years, it's somewhere in 1979. And this was fairly soon after Watergate.
Yeah.
I mean, there was stuff like Robert Redford would come in the newsroom to visit Bob Woodward. And and all the female staffers would go nuts because Robert Redford, can I ask for a show of hands? Who doesn't know who Robert Redford is? Probably half the room.
Oh,
but I mean, Robert Redford's what, 80 years old now, close to it? Yeah. But I mean, so it was that.
But so is my audience.
Your audience is not that. Your audience isn't. But that was the time at the Washington Post that we both got there. Tony from the New York Times, and me from a college campus. So that's when we met. And then I was covering sports for 10 years. He was a columnist in the style section of the Washington Post and in sports. And then we were both columnists in sports and sparring in the pages of the Washington Post. And a producer at ESPN said, I like this. I want to put this on television one day. And I remember Tony's exact response to him, to Mark Shapiro, was, that's great. Give me some coffee, please. And that's how.
Why is that not surprising?
Why is it not surprising?
Yeah. But you guys, I mean, it doesn't tell me it's not an act that you guys are friends. Like, it seems like, I'm not saying you have to go out to dinner.
But we do. And we play golf together. We're members of the same golf club in suburban DC. We do a fair number of things, together. There are, people ask all the time, are you guys really friends? Yes. Do we really get mad in real time at each other? Yes. Is it over pretty quickly, the anger? Yeah, it is.
One thing he often says is he said it on his radio show, that you're only one really dumb thing away from being kicked off the air.
Sure. Yeah.
And you're going to go on TV every single day. Before you go on, does that pass through your mind?
About once a month it does, but not on a daily basis. It's almost inevitable that it'll happen. It's amazing we've done the show for 17 years without it happening. This would be, I guess, a little inside baseball. So the show is usually taped, but we don't do anything over unless there's a technical glitch. The show is usually taped. So at 4:45 in the East, we tape, and the show airs at 5:30, so we're not finishing it until 5:20, and then it goes on the air. So there's no time to redo the show. So, I guess what they call live to tape, I'm still completely ignorant in the ways of television. I'm a sports writer. If you ask me who I am, it's not what I do anymore. But there are days when we have live, when the show is live, or parts of it are live. And so one day, luckily it was being taped, and I just, out of my mouth, in the middle of a conversation about, Tom Brady, came an F-bomb. And it was the only time in 17 years that either one of us had done that. And I stopped myself, and Tony looked at me like, why are you stopping? I don't think he knew. And I'm not sure the producers knew. It took them like a second and a half to catch it, and I knew as soon as it got out.
Yeah.
And it was a flub. It wasn't so like an emphatic thing. And then we did that segment over.
Michael Wilbon, everyone.
Mike, can I grab you for a sec before you have a chance to shower? Great interview. Great interview. But you've been interviewing great all year. How do you stay in such great interview shape?
I just take it one game at a time. I stay on the same page as my offensive linemen.
It's so wild, because that's exactly what I want to ask you about. We know the cliches. You take it one interview at a time. But when you obviously got a W, you're halfway through and you're just beating the hell out of Mark. How do you not write the rest off? How do you not just phone the second half in?
Well, one of my big flaws is I've always felt sorry for opponents when you're beating the hell out of them. It's just a tragic flaw. Coaches hate it.
Compassion.
I'll probably be fined.
You had your doubters. You had people who said, Wilbon can't be interviewed by Bazer. Wilbon, he can't handle an interview at the hideout. What do you want to say to the haters?
I want to do this Three Stooges thing where I just put my hands in my ears and do that, but I'm not going to do that and say, haters gotta hate. Isn't that a modern cliche?
That is it.
Is that an up-to-date cliche?
Talent and class. Good luck in the playoffs, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, back to you, Mark.
Funding for the interview show is provided by Field Notes, vintage-styled, made-in-the-USA pocket journals and stationery products. Learn more at fieldnotesbrand.com.